often say that it's our choice what we channel. We can channel the body, the personality, or the conditioning, the higher self. I'm trying to understand this in terms of who we are as consciousness.
So my experience is that we are all God consciousness. Okay? So we're all the creators, which means we exist beyond the forms, but we create with the forms, and we know ourselves through our creations. Okay? So you're an eternal consciousness that has no form. You are empty, you're invisible, you're silent, you're still, but you're also aware, intelligent, and creative. You're alive as this God consciousness that's beyond creation and beyond the universe. And we know ourselves by coming into creation, by coming into this universe. In our human experience, there's many dimensions appearing.
Mhm.
There's dimensions. So there's the physical reality, the emotional reality, the mental reality, and this deeper state of consciousness. Anything that we're aware of, we're perceiving, we're understanding, and we're going to be responding to. Now, for me, for example, right now I'm aware of my home. I might not have strong ideas about what I see in my home, so I might not have any motivation appearing inside of me to respond to them. Like, the home's okay how it is. I don't need to respond to it. But if a person walked into my home, I have an understanding about that person, and that motivates me to respond to it. So just because I'm perceiving something doesn't mean I'm responding to it and I'm wanting to create with it. So right now I have a personal human mind that has the conditioning based upon my history in this lifetime. I call that the subconscious mind. I also call that the memory-based self, or the memory-based conditioning, or the ego structure. Okay? So I have a memory, but it doesn't mean that I have to respond to every single thought that I hear. It doesn't mean that I have to respond to every single emotion that I have. It doesn't mean that I have to try to analyze my whole past to create a future with. I'm aware of a lot of stuff in many dimensions, but what I choose to focus, like narrow in and focus upon, is what I choose to bring my intelligence to, and also what I choose to direct my creative energy to. So the whole universe, right, if we can go beyond this human experience, the whole universe is a gigantic, limitless state. And for this human reality, I've chosen to narrow myself down to perceive just this range of frequency. And within this range, I'm perceiving mind, emotion, body, and world. And I focus on what worldly desires I have, what emotional feelings I have, what intelligence, what ideas I choose to have and choose to create with. Okay, so what we focus on, we perceive. And within that perception, we can narrow it down when we have a desire to change something, including a desire to experience more of something. If I'm getting pleasure from looking at an object, I might keep looking at that object and stirring up an emotional feeling, right? So my desire to have an experience determines what I narrow my perception to focus upon. The more we awaken and the more we know ourselves as this God consciousness state, the more we realize that we are free. So we all have free will, and we're free to choose what it is that we want to focus upon. That is the key to all this. Right? So you know yourself as this invisible, limitless God consciousness as best you can, and you realize you're also free. Right? In my home, I'm free to look at any object I want to look at. I'm free to move any object around. I'm free to get rid of any object. I can do whatever I want to do. In my emotions, I can do the same. I can move my emotional energy around, right? Move it through my body, different chakras, different energy channels, right? I can create any frequency I want to create as well, right? And I can remove any frequency of feeling I want to create as well. As a young infant, I learned how to move my physical body. So if I wanted to interact with physical objects, I learned how to do that. I learned how to hold things and walk with my feet and change the direction of my eyes, right? I can also learn how to move my emotional body. I can learn how to live inside my emotional body to move the energy and create the feelings that I want to create, or to get rid of feelings that I don't want to feel. So I awakened in the physical body as a child because I wanted to interact with it. And I awakened in the emotional body because I wanted to interact with those feelings. And I can also awaken in my mind when I want to interact with the mind, such as determining my understanding, evolving my understanding, controlling thought, removing thought, adding thought, doing all these things. I can also desire to know my spiritual consciousness and then work with that, create with that. So all these forms exist inside of myself. They're all appearing, and I'm a free will God consciousness, and I can choose to come into this reality and interact with all these forms. Now, if I haven't developed greater awareness of my mind yet, it might be a process of learning that happens. So I have to go step by step by step by step to develop more and more excellence as a participant in my mind, as a creator in my mind. So I develop myself. Right? Like a young child, I didn't know how to ride a bike when I was a young child. I didn't even know how to walk yet, but I learned how to walk. And as I kept walking, then I eventually learned how to run. And as I kept running, then I eventually learned how to ride a bicycle using my feet and my hands and a sense of balance. So I progressed the more I interacted with form in terms of evolving my understanding and my awareness and my creativity. So you're a God consciousness. You're completely open, you're completely empty, and you're filled with life. And you've chosen to fill yourself with a limited range of vibration inside this unlimited universe. And this limited range of vibration is the human reality. Okay, it's the human reality.
Mm-hmm.
And within this limited range, there's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and you can choose to focus on anything. Whatever you're interacting with, you're creating with, and that's like channeling. Inside your mind, there's a greater intelligence. I call it the higher self. I can channel that as well. There's also the memory-based intelligence. I call that the lower self. I can channel that as well. There's all these emotional frequencies. I can channel those. There's all these physical possibilities. There's all these choices I can make. There's all these ways that I can move my body. So I'm going to channel those as well. So I learned how to come into these different forms of myself and really just participate. It's the desire to live, the desire to create, the desire to participate that expands our consciousness in our reality. So my gift as a channel is not because some invisible being called God or an angel or an ascended master gave me this ability. That hasn't been my experience. It might be for some others, but it's just not mine. My experience is I desired to come into it. Right? I desired to come into myself. Now, my desire was knowing the truth of who I am, right? I want to know what this is, what's possible, what's this reality. And as that desire led me forward, all these other little things started appearing in my life. And I learned, wow, my mind can do this, and my energy can do this, and this is possible in the world, and this is possible. For me, I just wanted more experience of reality. I wanted to know about this thing that was happening to me, right? Why I was living, what this was all about. And along that journey, I just kept expanding into life, and these things just started awakening for me. So for me, it was very direct. It was one goal, and therefore most of the hours of my day were spent directed towards that one goal. I had to have a job, of course, but during the job, I could do other things. Jobs are pretty easy in the most part, especially when you're a younger person, right? School's pretty easy too. You have a lot of time, right? So I could meditate. I could meditate in the classrooms. I could do breathing practices. I could bring into my own personal life what I wanted to create more of while I was also living in the body, taking care of the body in the way that the body needs to be taken care of. Educating yourself, getting an income, building a career, and these things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I made what was important to me paramount, and I let that direct all the other parts of my life. Right? So essentially, I channeled my desire, because that's really the beginning of this whole process, is channeling your desire. So if you have a desire to be an awakened being, if you have a desire to learn about the higher self, it all begins as that desire. You desire to have a career. That desire happens first. So refine the desires you have, make them simple, make them clear by thinking through your life, what's more important and what's less important. And you'll find that some desires, you don't really have to focus on them that much. They're not that important. I had a desire to complete my college education, but it wasn't that important to me. I made choices that were good. I showed up to class. I got good grades. But what was important to me was my awakening. So I spent as much time as possible while being a college student pursuing my awakening. Right? And then from that, of course, it just kept expanding and kept going. So your soul's desire, that desire for what you want, that's the most important part. That's the most potent part of you. So channel your desire for what you want in your reality, and you'll definitely be able to achieve anything that you want. You just have to keep aligning with your desire. And that's going to help you work through your fears and your anxieties and your guilt and your shame and perhaps your psychological self-abuse, right? Some of us have learned how to talk about ourselves in very unfortunate ways, right? Ways that make us suffer. So your desire has to carry you through all those psychological patterns that you may have agreed with during your lifetime. But that's easy to do as long as you keep aligning with what you desire, right? Because that's the greatest power you have, that power as God consciousness to create, right? To determine what comes through in your reality as that original desire or that intention, as it's also called.
Very
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah.